You are a spy without even realizing that you're a spy. Chinese agents who created these LinkedIn traps takes advantage of desperate people who are looking for work. They're almost certainly using electronic means such as evaluating social media posts. You can get location data, where a person tends to be, what time a person is awake, when they go to sleep, when they go to lunch. That is the brilliance of this. It's likely that the Chinese agents who created these LinkedIn traps developed companies or took these companies over from other scammers who had carefully crafted a sort of narrative saying, hey, this is a new company, we're hiring people. And that is something that happens a lot in the intelligence community, where you have intelligence people working with criminal gangs. These criminal gangs have already established fake companies that they use for scamming, or just these cover entities. And the Chinese intelligence walks right in there, kind of takes things over, and establishes these companies as legitimate organizations, or sets things up in a way that takes advantage of desperate people who are looking for work. After a Chinese intelligence agent reaches out to someone, now you actually kind of begin the recruiting process without this person knowing directly. You might ask them to send in a resume, and once you get that resume, now you have that person's address, their phone number, their previous employment history, because the scammer doesn't want to get scammed. Right? They want to make sure that this person actually knows they're talking about. So they might actually do a background check on them and say, okay, did they really work at Lockheed Martin? Do they plausibly know how a stealth coating might be applied to a jet fighter? So once they confirm all that, then they might actually bring the person in for a telephone interview. And something like this, you don't actually want it to be direct questions like, hey, have you ever applied a stealth coating to an F-35? No. Just it's a normal interview. You ask normal, basic questions, and this sets this person up for round two. Round two is when they might actually bring a person in or conduct a video interview just to make sure that the person they're interviewing is on the level. And that's where they might ask more detailed technical questions. Now, the average person who has worked for an organization who might have a security clearance, they know not to answer certain questions. And in a case like this, what the intelligence officer is looking for is what you might call a mosaic. You might not offer someone a very specific piece of intelligence, but you can put in enough unclassified stuff that could confirm something that China already suspects. So a good example might be, we might not release the number of Patriot missiles that are actually sold to another country during an international sale. But you might ask the person you're interviewing, so how long do you think it's going to take to produce all of those weapons that you worked on? And the person might give an answer like, well, I was able to increase production by 25%, so it only took us down to 4 weeks per system. That kind of gives a little clue to the adversary that's part of that whole mosaic, and hearing other answers from other candidates might actually give them the information they're looking for without exposing any classified information. And there might even be a third step. This is where there is no job, but they might actually get paid as a consultant. They might be told, hey, write us a paper about some part of a subject matter that you're quite familiar with. Now, of course, this person isn't going to use classified information, but this does two things. The first is that it gives an additional data point for the mosaic. And the second part is now what you've established is compliance. Now, there's a saying in the intelligence community that's called MICE, and that stands for money, ideology, compromise, and ego. So those are basically the four things that get someone to work for a foreign intelligence organization. Believe it or not, money is the easiest thing. I give you money, you give me secrets. The fantastic part about this is that the target was never actually compromised. They never actually agreed to go work for a foreign intelligence agency. They think, hey, I'm getting paid money to write a paper. I am doing work and getting paid money. And people enter consulting agreements all the time. You might have university academics, which are useful because they might have insight into some classified programs or leading technology that isn't necessarily publicly available. They also might have some insight into public-private partnerships or university partnerships with companies, which could let the Chinese know what's coming down the road technology-wise, either for the sake of investment. I mean, heck, if I'm a Chinese spy, I wouldn't mind making a little bit of money on the side if I invest in the right things by knowing what might be coming down the pike. But you're also looking for people who are working at defense companies, technology companies. Those people, especially people who work for tech companies, they might not have the counterintelligence training that a person who works for, let's say, Northrop Grumman has. So they're a lot easier to manipulate. And sometimes just knowing what kind of tech is coming down the road is just as useful as knowing what kind of tech the military is using. You might ask yourself, why are they doing this, and what might this have to do with a Taiwan contingency? And the answer is actually very, very simple. First off, the internet has opened up a massive source of open information that's just right out there for the taking. And this really helps when developing these mosaic strategies. I've often said, if you want to know the size of, let's say, the Chinese army, well, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can kind of look at the Wikipedia answer. You can call up the Chinese army and ask them. They might give you the right answer, they might not. Or you could take a look at the Chinese Ministry of Defense and look at the contracts that they put out. And if you notice, hey, they put out a contract for 400,000 boots, that probably means they're going to recruit 200,000 people that particular year. So having this information open is an incredible treasure trove for intelligence professionals. Now, the reason they're using LinkedIn to try to grab information is that it's a lot easier to target someone who is not inside the intelligence community. Now, granted, grabbing someone inside the intelligence community could be an absolute goldmine. But these people are very, very hard to recruit, mainly because they know when they're being recruited. Intelligence workers are not stupid. So that tends to mean you're getting people who are dissatisfied with their current life. They don't like their financial situation. Maybe they have some character flaws that can be exploited, such as alcohol or drugs, which makes them inherently unreliable. A lot of people think that compromise, or kompromat, as people like to say, the Russian word, that people think that compromise is a great intelligence tool. It's a horrible intelligence tool. It's one of the worst, because eventually that person starts to hate working for you. You want people to work for you willingly. Now, when you're offering people money in order to gain information from them without them knowing they're even a spy, well, who works more willingly than that? Someone who's going to get paid for creating a work product that you asked for. Now, what this has to do with the Taiwan contingency, I can tell you this. Part of that whole mosaic is, how is someone going to react? If I were China, one of the things I might do is I might reach out to newscasters. I might ask them their opinions on China. Write a paper for me on the opinions of the newsroom on a Chinese contingency in Taiwan. Do you believe America should intervene in Taiwan? And that gives information to Chinese intelligence as to how the American media might react. How they might react to the president ordering a strike on China. Is the sentiment behind Taiwan, or is the sentiment behind damaging the U.S. president's credibility at whatever cost, since he is very politically dangerous right now to some people in America. All of that information is very useful to China, and that's how it would relate to Taiwan. China has likely had a file on Prime Minister Andy Burnham for years, which is probably a lot of work for these guys because you seem to change prime ministers more than most people change their socks. China has a profile on just about every leader. They almost definitely have a profile on me. They have over a regiment. We're talking 5,000 people who work in information warfare, one specific unit. In fact, one specific battalion of that unit is just engaged in information warfare against Taiwan, which means there's 3 or 4 other battalions that are engaged in information warfare and intelligence collection around the globe. China knows a lot about your prime minister. They have likely been tracking him for years, and they most likely have courses of action for him that they know what he is going to do, perhaps even before he knows he's going to do it. It's possible that some of his inner circle might be tracked, perhaps not his entire family. I know that the United States tracks the location of certain world leaders, not necessarily for any nefarious intent, but because if there is some sort of problem, the United States might be able to help out based on assets in the area. But I can tell you that it is likely that China is certainly tracking his inner circle now, either through intelligence means or intelligence collection with human intelligence, getting to know people in his inner circle or getting to know people who are ancillary to his inner circle. And they're almost certainly using electronic means such as evaluating social media posts. From something like that, you can get location data, where a person tends to be, and you can even get information on what time a person is awake, when they go to sleep, when they go to lunch. And depending on privacy laws in whatever country you're targeting, you can actually get information on where that person goes at any given point of the day, because when you go shopping in a supermarket, that Wi-Fi information is being collected from your phone. That's why you get a coupon to purchase a certain kind of pasta sauce. It's because the supermarket figured out that, hey, I was standing there looking at pasta sauce for 2 minutes. They can figure out your location inside the store from where you're standing based on Wi-Fi routers. And all that information is publicly available for purchase for advertisers, depending on what your country you're in. So it's almost certain that China's already developed a profile, not just on the prime minister, but on his inner circle, where they go, what they do, and when they do it.